In your life, you deserve to be more, do more, have more, and give more. And now the Becoming More podcast with Dianna Kokoszka.
Raelene Davis ran the 2002 Winter Olympic torch on its way to opening ceremonies, and she's been carrying the torch for her sport and state most of her life. Answering an ad for a Ski Utah marketing director in 1985 led to a long career promoting Utah skiing and snowboarding to the world. In 1985, most skier visits to Utah were from locals. Through 4 decades, Davis has carried the greatest snow on earth message to the world. Through clever, effective marketing and sometimes zany promotional stunts, like deploying Utah's famous snowflakes to downtown Manhattan, the messages have reached millions. She's often on the road internationally, attending ski and travel shows on 4 continents, even building ski slopes with real snow from sandy beaches to major cities. All proof she is Utah snow sport's relentless promoter. During her time as Ski Utah's Vice President of Marketing and Operations, skier visits have more than tripled.
I've been extremely blessed to have traveled to amazing places to promote not only the sport that I love, but the state that I love. To be able to tell people about our 15 ski areas and our 5 national parks and how close they are, and to see them get excited about it.
Raelene is a champion for growth among non-skiers as well, an impact felt nationwide. She was the mastermind behind Ski Utah's Learn to Ski and Ride programs, offering heavily discounted lessons first to 4th graders, and then creating the very popular Ski Utah Passport, offering free ski and snowboard days for all 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. To diversify the sport's appeal, she's led Utah ski areas to offer free lessons, gear, transportation, and passes through the Discover Winter program for Utah's ethnically diverse adult population. Nationally, Davis was co-architect of the National Learn to Ski and Snowboard Month initiative. During its 10-year run, over 1 million children and adults were introduced to skiing and snowboarding at more than 250 resorts. Utah Tourism Hall of Fame member Davis says, "I love how skiing brings people together." And she has done that for uncounted thousands of those she's influenced. That life's work now brings Raelene Davis into the Intermountain Ski Hall of Fame.
Welcome to Becoming More podcast, where you're going to learn to become more through other people's experiences. I am very excited today to have our guest, Raelene Davis. Now, you're going to find out a little bit later as to why I'm so excited. Yet Raelene Davis has directed Ski Utah's local, national, and international marketing efforts since 1985. As Vice President of Marketing and Operations, she has been instrumental in creating partnerships and marketing programs that have increased skier visitation to Utah from just over 2 million in 1985 to over 7 million in 2023. Davis was the publisher of the Ski Utah magazine. She serves on many boards, is an accomplished photographer, and enjoys skiing, golfing, traveling, cooking, and spending time with her family and friends. She lives with her husband Lyle in Salt Lake City, Utah, and they are the parents of 3 sons. They have 3 daughter-in-laws and have 9 amazing, fun-filled grandchildren. Now, I'm going to tell you about some of Raelene's accomplishments. And as you hear about these, you're going to get more excited because, after all, it will help you become more. 1985, she was hired as the marketing director of Ski Utah. 1989 to present, she designed Ski Utah's fourth grade Learn to Ski and Ride program, where upwards of over 10,000 fourth graders have been given the opportunity to ski. She's partnered with Bush Beer to take skiing to the masses and ski ramps on Jones Beach, New York, St. Louis, Missouri, Central Park, New York, San Francisco, California, Huntington Beach, California, and Salt Lake City, Utah. Created and organized the West Fest, bringing 300 travel agents into Utah to meet with representatives from all over the Rocky Mountain ski resorts. She joined the Ski USA and began promoting skiing in the US and to skiers around the world. She created the Ski Utah International Passport, which allows visitors to ski up to 5 ski resorts all on the same day. She secured skiutah.com. Ski Utah was one of the first destination marketing on the World Wide Web. Created the Ski Utah 5th grade passport program. She's a member of the local marketing committee for 2002 Olympic Winter Games. Now think about that, the Olympic Games, and she helped bring them to Utah. She not only did that, she carried the torch. She's an Olympic Winter Games torchbearer. She created the Ski Utah 6th grade passport as a compliment to the 5th graders and created and organized Ski Utah's Fat Flake Festival in downtown Salt Lake City. Say that 3 times, right? And created and directed in cooperation with Mary Jo Turallo, the National Learn to Ski and Snowboard Month. Resurrected the national Bring a Friend campaign and enlisted ambassadors around the country to spread the word about skiing and snowboarding. Inducted into the Utah Tourism Hall of Fame, included in the Ski Channel's list of most influential people in the ski industry, a director of the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame Board of Directors, publisher of the Ski Utah magazine, Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Association of Snow Sports Journalists, a member of the National Ski Areas Association, a member of the Mountain Travel Symposium Advisory Board, a member of the Salt Lake City Air Service Development Committee, created First Chair Podcast with host Tom Kelly, created the Ski Utah 4th grade passport as complementing the 5th and 6th graders, and created and directs the Discover Winter program, which introduces hundreds of ethically diverse adults and children to skiing and snowboarding. Next week, she's actually going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame for skiing. Now, Raelene, I've got to welcome you. Yeah, I've got to tell you, our podcast is now over. It's taken me too long to talk about all your accomplishments, yet welcome to the podcast, Becoming More. So Raelene, with all those accomplishments, I've got to tell you, I think our podcast is now over. It's time to go. It's taken all the time. You have done so much. And I've got to start out the questions with, what do you think allowed you to accomplish so much when there are so many people in the ski industry not doing all of that?
Well, Diane, I would probably have to answer that I'm a super passionate person. And when I set my mind to something, I am going to go full on. And so I did not allow any roadblocks for me in the areas that I was interested in. And it's difficult in this industry, especially when I started, because it's pretty male dominated. And so for me to propose certain programs, I had to believe in them 1,000%. Or they would have been very easily dismissed. But it really, in my opinion, was the passion and the tenacity to just move forward and get them done.
So, Raelene, I told the audience that I was very excited about this particular podcast and I would share with them why. And so now I want to tell them it's because you're my sister. And I'm so proud of all the things that you've accomplished. Yet you didn't start out that way. None of us do. In an industry that is dominated by men, you decided to enter in. Tell us what that was like when you first interviewed for the job.
Well, that was back in 1984. So things were a lot different back then. I had recently married, moved back to Utah, and Utah was very different in the 1980s than it is now. And looking for jobs was super difficult. When I interviewed for this position, the president of the company, Danny Richardson, was an amazing person. He was very open to women and to hiring women for leadership positions, which I am very grateful for. And I knew that it was going to be a long haul, that it would not be easy. But again, it's the tenacity and sticking to what I believed and what I wanted to do and accomplish that kept me here for so long and doing the things that I've been able to do.
Well, tenacity is a big thing. Yet, what was it when you were presenting to him? Do you think that there was one thing that really caught his attention? Because they interviewed many people.
Absolutely. It's a really funny story, actually. When I went in to interview, it was the last day of the interviewing process. And I came in and he immediately asked me if I wanted a cup of coffee. And that was his way of finding out if I was of a certain religion. And I had a really funny answer, and that connected us. But the next thing that connected us was, and I don't remember how this came about in the conversation, but Blackwater Falls, West Virginia, came up in the conversation, and we had both been there. And that's pretty amazing because he's from the Carolinas, I'm from Utah, and we had both been to this kind of out of the way place in West Virginia, and it just connected. And so I truly believe that in anything in life, connections is what makes things possible. It's not so much what you know, it's a lot about who you know, but it's about making that connection between who you both know and what you've both done.
Well, I think that's important. Now, if you're a listener, you're probably wondering, as I am, what was the funny comeback? Because you don't drink coffee. And he did ask you, may I get you a cup of coffee? And you said...
So he was either waiting for me to say, yes, that would be great. Then him knowing that I would be not of this certain religion. And if I said, no, thank you, I don't drink coffee, in a very proud way, like patting myself on the back, then he would know the opposite. But I asked him when he said, would you like a cup of coffee? I simply said, no, thank you, but is there something I can get you? So it was just like, wow, I've never had that answer before.
Well, the thing I loved about that is that servant leaderhood is something that you've always believed in. And rather than to go into the ski industry right now, I want to go back to where you were growing up and just kind of describe your childhood in just a few words. What were some of the things that you were taught at a very young age?
Well, Dianna, you and I, coming from the same parents, we had a little different childhood because you were a little older and I was the baby. So yes, I was spoiled. But the things that we both learned from our parents was a really strong work ethic. We learned to be trustworthy. We learned that it was important to do what was right, regardless of the situation, that right is always right. And we were taught to be kind to people and to embrace whatever they believed. We grew up in a family that was different religions, different cultures, different backgrounds, and yet we learned to really love and appreciate all people.
I think that's very important, and you brought that into your work. I'd love to say I was kind all the time, yet some people may argue that quite a lot. Nature and nurture. because we both have the same DNA. I mean, it runs through our blood, we're related. Yet that nurturing part, times were a little bit different because of this span of years between us. I'd like to say you're older. You can tell everyone she's not. And even though I tease her about it all the time. In becoming more, I think it's important that we talk about this nurturing because our environment is so important to us. So Raelene, let's skip from the environment of the home into the environment of the ski industry. You start, it's a lot of men, you're presenting ideas and communicating well, connecting every way you can, putting a lot of time into that communication, deciphering how should I say it, how long should I take to say it. So tell us about who did you turn to nurture you? Because this is a very important thing. Our environment makes up about 80% of our success.
Yeah, you know, I had several mentors as I was coming into this position, some in the industry and some not. You certainly were a big part of my success here at Ski Utah. You have taught me a lot over these years. We're in very different industries, but the principles that you have taught me over my life have helped me here. Looking to other women in the industry certainly helped me. But in many cases, I kind of had to go it alone and just trial and error and be the mentor for others, because I was sort of in a pioneering situation where there weren't many women in leadership roles in the industry.
We've been very pioneering, and you've been very creative in all the things that you've come up with. What is it about that creativity? Do you have a certain spot you like to sit, or a certain spot that you say, like John Maxwell has a thinking chair? Yeah, you've come up with so many programs. I listed a bunch of them right at the beginning.
I don't have a thinking chair. I'm like you. I don't sit very much. I would say that the best place I think is I walk every morning. And during those walks, I listen to podcasts. Back in the early days, of course, we didn't have podcasts, but I do a lot of thinking when I walk. People ask me all the time, "Oh, Raelene, can I walk with you in the morning? Because, you know, if I had somebody to go with, I would be much more motivated." And I hesitate, and I usually don't let people, because that's my thinking time. So I like to be alone and do my thinking. Every now and then I will invite people, because I think if we collaborate and we can talk, then sometimes we can solve the world's problems. But my walking is my best thinking time.
Well, and you're up every single morning walking, and you like to get how many steps in before you have breakfast?
Well, at least 5,500, but I usually do about 7,500.
Okay, because I know when I was staying over there, you were working, getting about 15 to 20,000 steps a day before the day was over. And I really appreciate that about you. You have a pretty good morning routine, and that has helped you become more. Tell us about that morning routine.
So I believe that if you have a routine or a habit that you do every day, that you can be set up for success. And my morning habit is I get up and I think for about 5 minutes before I ever get out of bed. I just cleanse my mind and think and give gratitude for the night's sleep that I've had. And then I sort of go through a little bit of my day. Then I get up, usually it's about 5:30 at the latest, and I'm out the door. I'm either walking or doing Pilates, or I'm doing Pilates and then walking. And then I eat a good breakfast and I head to work. But I really believe that you have to have at least 5 minutes of contemplative, just one-on-one with God or with yourself or whatever being you believe in, to, again, give gratitude and to think about what your day is going to be.
Well, you know, I like that word gratitude. And I know each and every day you do give gratitude. what do you think that does to you as to what you feel like after you've done that?
Well, you know better than anyone, when you give gratitude, it just sets you up for success because you're taking yourself out of the equation and you're putting others first. Again, not that you shouldn't put yourself first in certain circumstances, but if you are always thinking about yourself, then I don't know, that's not a great life. Thinking about others and doing things for other people, that's what makes me happy anyway.
Well, I know you're doing that a lot. You're taking meals to people when they're not feeling well. You're visiting people all the time. You have a schedule that's crazy. Yet, did you believe that your life would be like what it is right now when you were younger?
When I was younger, I knew that I would be happy because that was something that I really wanted. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to be successful. I never thought I would be in the ski industry. That was not something I aspired to be. However, I always knew that I wanted to provide opportunities for other people. And this job has allowed me to do that.
No, that's so important that you say that because you didn't even grow up skiing. I mean, when did you learn to ski? Weren't you in junior high or something?
Now, I was about 10 when I learned, and as you know, mom and dad never skied, but they were adamant about giving us, their children, opportunities that would provide a lifelong enjoyment for us. And they had a friend in Vernal, which is where we grew up, and mom called him and asked if he would take us up and teach us how to ski. And I remember learning at a little ski area called Grizzly Ridge, which was just south of Flaming Gorge and north of Vernal. And I learned when I was 10, didn't ski very often, moved to Denver when I was 13, and became friends with people who skied. And so we started hiring buses to go up on Saturdays, and we would fill the bus with junior high and high school kids and go skiing, not every weekend, but most weekends during the winter. And then I skied a little bit, in my college years and whatever. And when I moved back to Utah and got this job, it has really changed my life because that activity now has bled over into my children and my grandchildren. And it's something that we love to do as a family.
Well, and you're up on the slopes a lot. Now, you grew up in Colorado. And let's face it, Colorado and Utah are after those same skiers right next to each other, state against state. They're saying, hey, we've got the greatest snow on earth, which is a phrase that you came up with. Tell us a little bit about that rivalry growing up in Utah, moving to Colorado, then moving back to Utah and promoting Utah over Colorado.
Okay, well, first of all, I did not come up with the greatest snow on earth. That was the person who did that was back in the 60s. So yeah, I would love to claim that. However, Danny and I were the ones that convinced the Utah Travel Council at the time to trademark the phrase. It was not trademarked until 1985, and so we were the ones that made that happen. I believe that growing up in Utah until I was 13, then moving to Colorado, then moving to several other states, and then moving back to Utah gave me the advantage of knowing what the differences are between Colorado and Utah. And yes, Utah proclaims the greatest snow on earth. We proclaim that we have 10 resorts less than an hour from the airport. Colorado cannot claim those two things. And so they have great snow, they have great resorts, but we just, I like to say that we take what we want and send all the rest eastward. So, but I truly believe. Well, yeah, it's a lighter snow here, but I do believe that having lived in both places, that I can actually say Utah has the better snow and the better resorts because I've lived in both places, and it's super easy to get to the ski resorts here in Utah.
I love that. In fact, you put a billboard up in Colorado. I remember heading up the mountains, and here was this big billboard that said, if you were in Utah, you'd be skiing already, right? You'd be on the slopes or something like that. And I didn't dare tell anybody. My sister had put that billboard up because I thought they would string me up. They're right there in Colorado. So here's the fun part I want people to hear. Number one, you took what was different and you made certain that you could grab hold of it. Is there something that you should be thinking about trademarking? Like you took the greatest snow on earth. I gave you credit for it because you trademarked it. Is there something that you should be looking for that you have different than in everybody else? And you took that snow and described it in a different way as the rain and the water comes across California. Talk to us about that, how you explain the greatest snow on earth.
Sure. Before I do that, I will say that we're in the process of trademarking the greatest access on earth now. So, and that was my doing. And we've been in the trademark negotiations for the past year and a half with that phrase. So,
Oh, that's fun to know.
I'm proud of that. Yeah, yeah. The way I like to explain it is, so the storm clouds gather over the Pacific Ocean and they get their first payload of moisture, and they come across and they hit into the Sierra Nevadas and they drop their first payload of snow. A little heavier than snow we have here in Utah, but the first amount of snow. Then those clouds, they come across Nevada, which is desert, and Western Utah is also desert. And so they just sort of get, wrung out, just no moisture left. And then right before they hit into the Wasatch Mountains, which is the western slope of the Rocky Mountains, they pick up more moisture from the Great Salt Lake, which has an amazing salt content. And so this water and moisture that it picks up is very unique. And so when it drops the snow in Utah, we call it the Goldilocks effect, because it's the perfect amount of moisture, the perfect amount of flotation, and therefore it's the greatest snow on earth.
And then, of course, you say as it heads towards Colorado, it takes on more ice and it's back to heavy again. So here's what I want our listeners to get out of this is, how do you describe what you do and make it different than everyone else? These are the little techniques that I don't know that they pick up on becoming more. And you've had a lot of challenges. You've faced a lot of challenges throughout your life, as well as in the ski industry. Tell us about maybe one defining moment.
Oh, I don't know if there's one defining moment, but I can tell you that the thing that is most unique about working at Ski Utah than any other state ski association is we are extremely collaborative here in Utah. I don't believe any other state would get their ski resorts together and talk about how they can grow their skier visits and how they can do this or do that, and work collectively for the better of the whole. And we do that so well here in Utah that it makes overcoming obstacles a lot easier, because we're one voice instead of 26 or 15 or whatever number of voices other states have with their ski resorts. So being collaborative is, well, I mean, the resorts do compete with one another. However, they do come together and discuss issues, not in an antitrust sort of way, but we do talk about how can we overcome this problem, or how can we become better or become more. And that's really important, to be collaborative, especially in today's world.
I think it's imperative in today's world, that's for certain. Now, 2002, I'm going to take you back, because we were able to come, and that was the first Olympics that actually had all of the craziness that was happening after 9/11. You had something enter into the Olympics that no one else had ever faced before. It was called lines, having your purse gone through, going through metal detectors, all of these things you had no idea were about to happen when you first started planning all of this. What was it like to be on that committee and have hundreds of thousands of people come from around the world, and every one of them were judging everything you did?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking that question. And, it was the first international event that took place after 9/11. And you remember, you flew in and you had to circle and circle, and you couldn't get out of your seat because of the fly, and there were no fly zones, and it was absolutely crazy. But the fact that our Olympic Committee, in just 3 months, from September to February, so October, November, December, so 4 months, they had to put the entire security system together. It wasn't budgeted for. We didn't have all the expertise that we needed. I mean, certainly there is a level of security that comes with any Olympics, but we had to heighten that 1,000%. And the fact that it worked was nothing short of a miracle. The fact that the Olympics in 2002 in Salt Lake City was the first Olympic Games that actually made a profit, and we were able to create these amazing legacy facilities that are still in operation today. I think that speaks volumes on the talent that we have here in Utah, the again, the collaboration and the community and the volunteerism that we have here that doesn't exist in other places to the extent that it does here.
Well, and the work ethic of Utah has been known for many, many years. In fact, that's why a lot of companies go to Utah, to get that work ethic in play for them. Now, you also raised a lot of money, because, I mean, like, we went down to look at the brick that was in the pavement area with our name on it, that we had paid for that one little brick, and then it's thousands. What were some of the things that you did, and how did you come up with those ideas to raise that amount of money to make a profit?
Well, I wasn't involved in the making of money, so I can't tell you exactly how that was done. I can tell you that I've been very instrumental in raising funds for our school program and for our Discover Winter program. And again, it's the way you raise the money is, one, you have to be passionate about what you're doing or what you're selling. You have to be knowledgeable about what you're selling, and you have to know the right people. I love that question that you always ask, who do you know that I need to know? That's probably the most important question you can ask somebody, especially in fundraising or when you're starting a program. Oh, well, there you go.
I can't
Okay,
take credit for that. I got that from John Maxwell. And at the same time, here's the interesting part about all that. What I want our listeners to hear is the passion. Once again, the communication. You got to believe so much in what you're doing that you can raise money. For example, let's take the diversification program that you put into place. When you first started that, you wanted to help 200 families that had never been skiing, never been on a snowboard, and you equipped them with equipment, the entire wardrobe, ski passes for a year. Is that correct?
So we wanted to break down all the barriers to entry. And we knew that, you don't just wake up one day and say, oh, those mountains look pretty cool, I'm going to just go try skiing. And if you don't have a friend or a family member to introduce you to the sport, it's not something you think about. And Utah is really a welcoming state for refugees. And so we have many people here from Africa and the Middle East and places that they don't even know what snow is. So the thought of going skiing was not even in their psyche. So when we found the individuals, we put the message out, we found the individuals, we knew we needed lots and lots of money to make this happen.
Yeah.
And the ski resorts were very supportive of the program because we needed them, obviously. And then we had companies like the Larry H. and Gail Miller Family Foundation and Morgan Stanley and Gregory Pax and Delta Airlines. come to the table with money to help provide the necessary things. So the individuals who participate in the program, all ethnically diverse, they receive, like you said, all the gear that they need: coats, pants, helmets, goggles, neck gaiters, socks, gloves, all these things they get to keep. Then we give them transportation from Salt Lake City to the resort. We give them
This is
4
so
ski
good.
and snowboard lessons. We, at the end of their 4 weeks, we give them a Ski Utah Yeti Pass, which is valid for 1 day at all 15 Utah resorts, so they can keep practicing. And then at the end of the
Wow.
season, we have a big party where they come together and we give big prizes, and we all ski and we eat great food, and we have a DJ, and it's a really fun party. And then to keep them engaged, we do things in the summer, like we do hikes, and we have service projects and biking trips, and et cetera, et cetera. And then the next year, of course, we want to keep them engaged, so we offer them the opportunity to purchase season passes from the resorts. And it's a program that we've done for 3 years. It was birthed out of COVID, because you know what? When COVID hit, as John Maxwell always says, crisis creates opportunity. And we had a lot of time to think during COVID. And that's when we came up with the program. And it really has been, one, a labor of love, but it has taught me as much as it has taught all of the participants.
How were they chosen, and how many families did you help?
So the first year we had 150, and this was for adults. And this was something that was very unique because most programs in the industry are for children. And Ski Utah, we have a lot of children's programs. The resorts have children's programs, but this was the first time we really focused in on the adults. And we chose the adults because we knew that if you teach a child, you have to wait for several years for them to be able to be of the age to get to the resorts by themselves and earn enough money to continue the sport. But if we were to teach adults, then they would be able to get themselves up to the resorts. And as they start having families, then they would be able to bring their children. So it's a little top down instead of bottom up approach. But we had 150 people the first year, 225 the second year, and 275 last year. This year we're hoping to do maybe 350. Hoping that's our goal. But we
Giving
put
all of this away.
Yes, absolutely. And so when we work with Morgan Stanley, for instance, Morgan Stanley has a very diverse workforce. And when we approached them, we said, if you were able to offer this to your employees, would that be something that you would consider? Because they love to do programs, and they felt that, okay, if we give $25,000 and we put 30 people through this program, that's a pretty cool thing. We don't have to do any other work.
Yeah.
Well, let Ski Utah do all the work, and we're providing an opportunity for employees. So Morgan Stanley is a good example. The Future Scholars of Africa, Outdoor Afro. There are many diverse groups here in Utah, and we just tapped into those communities and those clubs. And yeah, we had 700 people apply last year. We had to turn off the applications about 3 weeks before we had intended to, because we could only take 300 people, and we had 700 people at that time apply.
Oh my
It was
word.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you make the choice?
Well, we took, where they lived, where if they had skied or snowboarded before, they had to be a never ever. It was a little bit of hit and miss, just throwing darts, because we didn't really ask for essays or anything. Some people have applied every year, and we look back and say, oh, this person's applied twice, we should put them in the program this year. But it's a chore, and I would love to be able to offer it to everyone, but unfortunately the financial obligation of that, we just can't, and the resorts can only do so many lessons in a day. So yeah, there are some restrictions, but yeah, it's tough.
Hey, you can also come to Utah, thanks to you, and ski 5 resorts in 1 day. How
Well,
did you
actually
come up with
6.
that type of idea? 6 now.
Okay, so
Oh
it's
my
6
word, I'm
resorts
behind
in
the
one
times,
day.
Raelene.
Yeah. So it was created in 1984, the year before I started, actually. And you can start at Deer Valley, Deer Valley to Park City to Solitude, Solitude to Brighton, back to Solitude for lunch, over to Alta, then to Snowbird, and a van takes you back to Park City. It's the only place in North America where you can actually do this in a single day. We take up to 12 people per day, and it is an incredible experience. One of those experiences where you literally crawl into the van with burning thighs and your arms are sore and you're sweating and you've just had, the t-shirt that says best day ever. You've just worked so hard. But it's a really cool tour. It's called the Interconnect Tour, and it's the only thing that Ski Utah actually operates. But we love it, and it's full almost every day of the season.
Oh my word. Now I'm going to switch gears a little bit on you, because as you enter into your home, you have an Olympian torch encased. It even has the soot on the torch from when it burned. You got to carry that torch. What was that like?
So I could cry right now. Actually, it was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in my life. My husband, Lyle, which you introduced me to, thank you very much. He nominated me for that honor, and I was selected. I was selected to run in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. Not sure why. Maybe because I had lived in Colorado. I don't know. But my children laugh that we had to drive 6 hours so mom could run 2/10 of a mile. But I can tell you, those 2/10 of a mile, I would do it again tomorrow. It was so incredible being on the bus with those other torchbearers and hearing everybody's story was nothing short than amazing. You get out of the bus, and when you hold your torch, which you're given the instructions or uh, uh, you're told how the torch was made and why it was made, and the bottom of the torch is shiny silver, and then the middle of the torch is kind of molten silver, and then the actual torch part of it is crystal with copper in the middle, and the shiny part is the new Olympics. The not so shiny part were the old Olympics, and then you hold it between the two, so you're fusing the new and the old. And then the crystal where the flame is, the copper came from Kennecott Copper Mine here in Utah. And when the flame is lit, you hold your torch to the person before or who just finished running, and then your flame lights, their torch is extinguished, and then you hold your torch and run the 2/10 of a mile. And that flame, the super cool thing about it is that flame is from the sun. It's lit in Athens every year for the Olympics, and then it's transported to the home country, and then it travels all around that country. And the fact that that flame came from the sun, and then when you extinguish your torch, and they tell you don't wipe the soot because that's actual soot from the sun, and that's why the soot is still there on my torch. It's pretty amazing. But the most amazing thing, Dianna, was being in the opening ceremonies and seeing that torch come into that stadium right after that 9/11 flag had come into the stadium, and then watching that torch be passed from person to person and then given to the Miracle on Ice team, Mike Eruzione, to light that cauldron. Oh my gosh, it still just gives me goosebumps. And you and I both love that movie, so that just had even more special meaning.
Well, and if you're listening to this, don't ever miss the opening ceremony if you can get to one. We almost missed it. We didn't buy tickets. And Raelene, thank you for talking us in to buying and to getting those tickets. You helped us find them. We had tickets to everything else. We just thought for that amount, do we really need to go? And yes, you do need to go. And the Olympics are coming back to Salt Lake City in 2034. Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
I bet you're very, very excited. Well, I also know that you're a big list maker and you check things off, setting the goals ahead, checking things off as they get done. And one of the lists that you did make was, well, you were a little bit older than most of us when we get married. And both of us being Italian, of course, Grandma was having a praise that you were going to be an old maid. Talk to us about the list that you made.
So I wanted certain things in a spouse, and I had made a list. I don't know if you want me to tell you some of those things on the list, but I made a list. I think it was on a yellow notepad that was the big legal pad. All these things, and I don't know.
It
I
was
look back
long.
now, yeah, and I look back now and I think, my goodness, was I really selfish or something to where I thought I needed all of those things in a husband? But yeah, I just knew some of the things that were non-negotiable. Not everything on the list was non-negotiable, but there were some things that were non-negotiable. And thank you very much. You found that person. I don't know if you set that out as one of your goals, was to, find your little sister a perfect mate. But you did, and I really thank you for it. I am very happily married. We'll celebrate our 40th anniversary this December, and we have 3 beautiful, handsome, hardworking sons who are married to 3 beautiful, hardworking women, and we have 9 grandchildren, and yeah, all thanks to you.
No, it's very interesting. What I wanted the people to hear is that as I read that list, I went, she's describing my loan officer, because I was in real estate at the time. Now, making that list though, truly understanding who you're looking for, whether it be a spouse or a coworker, someone you want to add to your team, knowing exactly who it is that you're looking for, as though their picture and description was on the milk carton of somebody that was lost, right? And spreading it around, saying, this is who I'm looking for. Do you know them? Here's what I heard today, Raelene, that you've helped us with in becoming more. We've got to break down the barriers, whatever the barriers are, generally through our passion and our communication, to connect with people, finding what we have in common and going from there. You want to give back constantly, and we're going to end with giving back and how you go to the cannery and some of the things that you do. Yet you are innovative. You said to have thinking time. Always be grateful for all the things that you have and give gratitude every morning. Have a morning routine that includes exercise and some type. Walking, they say, is one of the best things that you can do. Whatever you start, see it to the finish, to think beyond where you're at right now, to go to other industries and give them opportunity to join in with what you're doing, allowing them to win as you win, to bring other people in that have never even thought to do what you are currently offering. And then, of course, put yourself out there. Who knows, maybe you're going to be a torchbearer, and not for the Olympics, a torchbearer for somebody else, allowing your light to shine so bright that you give permission for other people's light to shine as well. So let's go to giving back, because we truly, both of us, believe that giving is something, well, generosity is why we're here. So what are some of the things that you do that other people may not even think about doing?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a person of faith, And I believe that in giving at least 10% to your religious affiliation, that so much good can be done with that. And it's something that you really never miss when you do it, especially when you do it consistently.
Right.
So I have a firm belief in the good that that can do you and the recipient. I also believe that that you just have to get out of yourself. And you mentioned the cannery. We have so many volunteer opportunities here in Utah. I mean, there are everywhere for sure. But really sort of thinking outside the box, there are opportunities every day. You can go to a senior living center and read to someone. You can go to a hospital and read to a child. You can go to a recreation center and help someone walk or do an exercise.
Yeah.
You can just, I don't know, there's so many opportunities, and I just love doing that. Through our church, we have many opportunities, but you can also find them in the local newspaper or at your community center. You can look online how to give back, but that's really important because whatever you give comes back to you tenfold. I really believe that.
Yeah, and I believe it really helps our health to be generous
Mhm.
and give, because they say that our brain then releases great chemicals into our system to make us healthier. And that generosity, you're right, you really don't miss it. I was having my hair done, and Ray Rose, my hairdresser, he gives to helping children, foster kids, have birthday parties. And he
Oh,
goes
that's
and he
great.
puts boxes together and gifts together, and he raises money every year to help all these kids have birthday parties that never would have a birthday party. When you said there's always things in your community, you're absolutely correct. So I'm going to challenge everyone that is listening to this podcast. Find something this month or next month, at least before the end of the year, to give back in some way, whether it's to buy backpacks for kids at school, to give maybe one family Christmas gifts. I know one of the things that I've absolutely loved is when you get a family and you buy Christmas gifts and you wrap them all up, put them on their doorstep, ring the doorbell, and run like heck, right? So they never know where they came from. I think things like that we did. I think back when you and I would like burn our hands for making miracle candy that we would give out to every postman, every trash collector, every service person, every operator back in the days, every civil service person. I mean, we made so much of that, not to mention the spaghetti dinner. We made so many meatballs and spaghetti sauce. I think our kitchen, well, you couldn't do that in today's world with all the health regulations that they have now yet. Do you remember that growing up and our kitchen
Oh,
was just cooking constantly,
absolutely.
it seemed
It
like.
was spaghetti sauce and chocolates and Cape Miracle Mix and Scalili and all of those things. But Dianna, I also wanted to share one thing. About 10 years ago, seems like 10 years ago, I read the book by Richard Paul Evans, The Christmas Jar. And I love doing this. It's harder today with people not using cash so much, but Lyle and I, every day at the end of the day, we take any change that's in our pockets, our purse, whatever, and we put it into a jar. And the end of the year, the jar is full. It's just a quart jar. And we decide who we're going to give that to. And we give it to them anonymously. And it's really fun because you know what? I've never counted the money that's in there, but there's quarters and pennies and dimes and nickels and all different currencies. And you give it to someone, or you give it to someone to give to someone else, and you never miss that money. You don't know what was in there. What would you have done with that? I don't know. Maybe you had bought a pair of shoes or something, but it's so fun to do that. So I would challenge your readers to, or to your listeners, to get that book, Richard Paul Evans, The Christmas Jar, and consider doing that. It's a really simple thing, and it's not taking money from what you would take from your bank account or whatever, because you're just not going to miss that change. So that's an
I
easy thing
love
to
that
do.
idea. I think things like that are so much fun. And once again, just being innovative, borrowing ideas from other people on how you can help someone else in becoming more. Listeners, this is what it's all about. Who you are being today is not who you have to be tomorrow. Become more, be intentional, and learn from the podcast. We trust we'll see you next week. Thank you so much, Raelene. It's not only fun to interview you as a person, it's even more fun knowing that I grew up with you and that, my goodness, I related to a very special, famous person.
Well, that goes both ways, Dianna. Thank you very much for having me, and have a great
there's
afternoon.
one more thing. There's one more thing. I'm going to a dinner with you. And this dinner is inducting you into a very special Hall of Fame. Tell us about that.
So on August 28th, I will be inducted into the Intermountain Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame. I'm very honored. I'm very humbled. I appreciate the person who nominated me and for all those who voted for me, but I couldn't have done it without the gifts that I was given from God. And I just hope I have magnified those gifts in a way that He is happy with me and my accomplishments. All the accomplishments I get here on earth, it's great, but to me, it's more important for my Maker to acknowledge my accomplishments. But thank you very much, Dianna, and I'm so excited to see you next week and to have you be there with me, because you have been so instrumental in my success and my becoming more. So thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you so very much. Listeners, thanks for being part of this today. I'll see you next week.
In your life, you deserve to be more, do more, have more, and give more. And now the Becoming More podcast with Dianna Kokoszka.